Good morning or good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the session today. A few housekeeping notes to begin. As you entered the WebEx console, you either joined us by audio broadcast or by phone, which is automatically muted. Because of our large audience in attendance today, you will remain muted throughout the event. When you have a question, please feel free to enter it into the WebEx Q&A panel as you think of them. You can find the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of the console. Please leave the WebEx chat window for communication to the WebEx facilitators for any technical issues or problems you may be experiencing. This session is being recorded and you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. We would appreciate your input regarding today's webcast, and a short survey will appear when you close your browser at the end of the event. At this time, I'd like to pass it over to Francine Richards.
Hello and welcome to the Cisco Support Community. Today we present a live Cisco Support Community Experts Series webcast event. During our event today, our topic will be configuring Cisco Unified Border Element for PSTN SIP trunks. My name is Francine Richards and I am the project manager for the Cisco Support Community. Our expert joining me today is Randy Wu, a senior TAC engineer in Sydney and triple CCIE with broad experience deploying Cisco Unified Border Element. Welcome, Randy.
Hi, welcome everyone.
Now, I'd like to briefly outline the format for today's Expert Series event. Randy will start with a short presentation on Cisco Unified Border Element for PSTN SIP trunks for the first 25 minutes of the program, and then we will dive into the live question submissions for the remainder of the event. During our live presentation, you may submit a question to be answered by Randy and a team of Cisco technical experts using the Q&A box on the right side of your console. The team of technical experts is well-versed in IP telephony and Cisco UBE technologies, so please begin posting your questions now to give us the best chance of answering them. And if you experience any technical issues, please post your question in the chat. We'll be asking polling questions during this webcast, and we encourage you to participate by answering them. You may download a copy of today's PDF presentation using the link in the chat window. Now, let's get started with today's event. And we're going to start out with a polling question for the audience. What is your level of experience with Cisco Unified Border Element? A, I am thinking about using it. B, I am playing with it in my lab. C, we are running it in production. D, we are using third-party SBC, might consider a Cisco UBE. Now, you can go ahead and take some time to answer that. That'll be open for a little bit, and we'll display those results a little bit later. So make sure to submit your questions as we will answer them later in the webcast. And now I would like to hand the mic to Randy, who will give you an expert look into Cisco UBE technologies.
Hello everyone, my name is Randy Wu. I work in Cisco Sydney Tech Voice team. Today I will share with you some experience of Cisco Cube deployment and configuration for the SIP trunk service. Here comes today's agenda. We will have 3 sessions. First of all, I will give you a brief introduction of PSTN TDM and SIP trunk service. Also a little bit Cube overview. And then I will talk about the migration from the PSTN TDM chunk to the SIP chunk. The last part, I will cover the Cisco Cube configuration from the general ones to more advanced features, and also the troubleshooting steps when you had some problem with Cube. So about before we know the SIP chunk service, we like to have an overview of the. Okay, so as you can feel, right, the PSTN connectivity for enterprise voice network is evolving from the traditional PSTN TDM chunk to the SIP chunk now. The enterprise before, they just have the traditional TDM voice service from PSTN. They are looking for more flexible and cost-saving service from the commercial SIP provider now. And not only the voice service, but also the video service are in their scope. So before understanding the SIP chunk service, we can have a brief overview of the comparison of the traditional TDM service and the SIP chunk service. From this chart, you can see for the TDM chunk, the services like a basic call, supplementary service like transfer, forward, hold, or 911 service, caller ID service were there for many years, as you know. So also being well defined as the industry standard for a long time. The SIP service, the SIP chunk service was there for a little bit less time, but it became more and more attractive to the enterprise user because the geographic independency. Also, they will support more and more media service in the future. Also, it's very flexible in the IP-based routing. So you can find more details in the listed items if you consider one of them in your design. So if you know what you are looking for the SIP chunk service and why we choose Cisco Cube to deploy the SIP chunk, since the Cisco Cube can support most of the SIP chunk service we mentioned in the previous slide. As you can see from this chart, the Cisco Cube can provide the following 4 core functions. The core routing with admission control, also the IPSL function to monitor the traffic. Also, the Cisco Cube can do the protocol interworking between SIP and H323, and it actually acting as a demarcation point for troubleshooting and also the billing function. And Cisco Cube also can provide security function by integrating the iOS firewall function and support the signaling protection. Not only this Cube feature, the Cisco Cube can also have other features like the MTP service, SRST function, and also TDM gateway function in the same box. We had some best practice based on our many deployment experience. So as the SIP chunks marketing is still maturing, so when you choose the provider, you need to evaluate and before your decision. If you want to integration the Cube with Call Manager, in the chart they listed a recommended protocol for different Call Manager version. Also, there are a lot of design documents available in the Cisco website for your reference. And we recommend the Cisco Cube to resolve the listed issues, such as normalize the SIP traffic with SIP profile, which is one of the feature. And also we can do SIP early offer to delay offer conversion and other functions as well. For choosing the voice codec, we recommend better using G711 codec for SIP chunk to avoid the transcoding resource. And also you should make sure the other issues like redundancy and fax services, how the services integrate into your network or your design. For your easy remember, we summarized the top 5 issues for SIP chunk PSTN access. So the first one you want to consider is how to integrate with the IP PBX, how to get a call work between the Cisco Cube and the IP PBX, and how to integrate the fax call with the Cube functions. Sometimes you've got very old fax machines, so you have to think what kind of protocol you have to use for integrating the fax. Also, for some user, there are some postal machine like EFT post or modem. So you have to consider how to integrate these old devices into the SIP trunk service. For some customer, there is an early audio announcement, so you have to think about it as well. Number 4, you have to consider the supplementary service in the voice call, such as hold resume or the music on hold service. And the last one will be the quality control. So how the voice quality and user experience compared to the traditional PSTN TDM trunk. Okay, after we had some idea about the SIP trunk service and some best practice with Cisco Cube, now we move on to the migration part from the PSTN TDM to the SIP trunk. So in the past, most of the enterprise deployed the PSTN TDM trunk access, such as the digital T1 E1 PI service in the headquarters and the analog FXO or ENM in the branch offices. Today, some enterprise already migrate to the SIP trunk service, and the other are still using the PSTN TDM trunk service. So in the future, the trend is moving more and more the traditional TDM service to the SIP trunk service. So there are several models of SIP trunk deployment based on your enterprise scale or location. The centralized one will be adapted to the big headquarters with small branch offices, or for some centralized call center. If you have multiple similar scale locations, then you will adopt the distributed mode. And also you can combine 2 modes to be a hybrid one. During the SIP trunk to TDM, TDM to SIP trunk migration, SIP Cube actually provide the redundancy option for PSTN failover if the SIP trunk goes down or congestioned. In the Cisco Cube, we can have a secondary path to PSTN in the same device along with the primary path to SIP provider by using the preference of the dial peer. And the maximum connection command in the chart is for the congestion failover. So in this example, say if you reach maximum connection 300, then the call will fail over to the PSTN. If you want to have a better and smooth migration to the SIP trunk, we definitely need to have a very thorough test plan. So we need to have a circuit acceptance test from the service provider, also connectivity test, like in the chart summarized. So you need to test the basic outbound, inbound call, voice quality, accounting issue, stability, etc. And then you have to pay attention to the SIP application call flow test. So you have to test the caller ID display, the ad hoc conferencing, and how the DTMF interworking. So you can have ideas how many services you need to test from the list. And also you need to have a failover test if you have a very large enterprise network. Cisco Cube had completed the major interoperability validation with most of the major SIP service provider, such as AT&T, Verizon, Sprint. Also, we tested the interoperability with a lot of PBX vendor, like Alcatel, Avaya, Nortel. You can find more information in the highlighted URL.
Okay, before we get back to the presentation, I'd like to go ahead and display the results from our previous poll. And I'd like to ask another polling question. What is your deployment plan of PSTN access using Cisco UBE in the next 12 to 18 months? A, traditional PSTN access is working fine. No plans for deploying Cisco UBE yet. B, we are planning to migrate the PSTN access to SIP service using Cisco Cube. C, we will implement a greenfield implementation of the PSTN access using Cisco Cube. D, we will migrate our PSTN access to SIP service using third-party SBC products. Or E, we will implement managed service for the enterprise users using Cisco UBE. So you can submit your response now, and we'll display the results a little bit later. And back to you, Randy.
Okay, thanks. So now I will cover the Cisco Cube configuration and the troubleshooting part. So we will start from the general configuration and go on to the advanced features and then troubleshooting introduction. So as you know, the Cisco Cube Enterprise version is running on Cisco iOS. So this configuration will start from configuring a general router function, like you have to configure IP address on the interface and routing protocol, make sure IP routing is working fine before you go to the Cube configuration. Then it will enable the Cube function globally, adding the SIP capability or transcoding resource or codec class as an options. Also, you have to configure the dial plan to route the call, obviously, and DTMF setting, fax services if you're still using the fax. And sometimes you need to have SIP normalization to make sure the interoperability working with the SIP provider. So this is the example of very common Cube global configuration. Under the voice service VoIP, the two commands allow connection SIP to SIP, and mode border element is a master configuration to enable Cube function. And then for the SIP messaging handler, you can put it on the globe configuration as well under the voice service VoIP SIP. And you can do a call admission control based on the CPU memory resources of this router. Also, you can do the maximum call volume this router can accept. So those will be global configuration. And also you can adjust the SIP timer under SIP UA, which is another global configuration as well. So after this global configuration, you enable the Cube function and also change the SIP timer or define the call admission control settings. Then you have to define the dial peer pointing to different signaling peer. So in this example, the dial peer 1 or 2 will pointing to the call manager side, the one of the subscriber. The 103 will pointing to the call manager publisher for redundancy purpose, and dial peer 1, 2 will be used to pointing to the SIP provider for call routing. So under this dial peer, you can define the specific policy or other parameters. And the Cisco Cube has the ability to transcode different codec. like G711 to G729 between the call legs, and you can use inbox DSP to do it or out of box to do the transcoding. For the transcoding utilization, for example, when you have the SIP provider, the call coming using the G729 codec, and your enterprise IVR system might only support G711 codec, so you can use the transcoder resource on the cube to translate the different codec. So this is the typical example to configure transcoding resource on the cube. The one thing you have to pay attention to in these configurations is you have to configure the cube as the call agent under the telephony service. So Cisco Cube also provides the security function. In this example, you can use the access control list in the example 102 and 101 to restrict the traffic from the known point. And also you can restrict the host name or IP addresses that allow to talk to the cube from the SIP application layer. This configuration is under SIP UA. Also, you can specifically deny the TCP port for the SIP to listen if you only use UDP. So there are some very general cube configuration you have to put it on. And then we have some example configuration for the advanced features. The first one will be the SIP profile, how to use SIP profile to modify the SIP messages. So sometimes the SIP provider requests some specific SIP header for interoperability issue. In the Cisco Cube, we can add those SIP header using the voice class SIP profile with the add option. And we can add the header name or header value under SIP header or SDP header for the request message like invite or response message like 200 OK. And this voice class SIP profile will be applied to the specific dial peer pointing to the SIP provider or call manager or other SIP endpoint. So this is another same SIP profile using the remove option. In the example in the middle of the slides, you can actually remove the reason header from the buy message if it will be required. So the syntax is the same as the add configuration. And we provide the other option was modify. So you can modify these SIP messages to the one you want it to be. So like in the chart in the last example, we can change the SDP header of audio attribute to compensate some using a whole issue with call manager. So we can modify the value from inactive send only to the send receive value in the request and response messages. So sometimes we can fix the music on whole issue. And the second feature will be the dial peer bind feature. By enabling the dial peer bind feature, the enterprise customer can connect to multiple SIP providers for redundancy or for the different call type routing purpose. So you can route some call to this provider or route some other calls to another provider based on your service. And this feature will be supported after iOS version 15.1.2t. So this is the example how you configure. In this example, in a WPA voice 1, so you define the voice class SIP bind command using the gigabit Ethernet 00 pointing to service provider 1, and then the WPA 2, you binding loopback address pointing to another service provider. For the WPA 3, you didn't define anything, and then it will use the default, global configuration under the voice service VoIP. So that's how the command works. The third feature I would like to introduce is for the incoming WPA match on IP addresses from the SIP provider. So from the cube point of view, it can match the incoming provider's host IP addresses with different WPAs in the front or via header. After this differentiation, so Cisco Cube can apply specific call routing or codec selection, digit manipulation, or other policies based on the different providers. So we'll be very flexible. So that's an example configuration of this feature. And in this example, the host part, we can do IPv4 address matching, also IPv6 host matching. So this concludes the example of the advanced feature in Cisco Cube. There are more features available in the design document or online documents for reference. There are URLs available in the end of this slide. The last part of this session is about how to troubleshoot when you have a problem. So when we are saying troubleshooting, so some people are very familiar with debug or sniffer chase. But actually, before diving to the debug or sniffer chase, we better use the show command to get an idea of the call flow to isolate the issue. So this command will give you an idea. Like the show call history voice will give you the information for the calls already being made. So you can find the matching WPA, calls code or fail call if you know some previous call number or calling number. And the show call active voice will let you know the current connected calls and related parameter. So it will help you to get the call from the cube to further troubleshooting. So other listed command will give you other relevant information like details of RTP stream, voice call status, and voice call statistics. After you understand the call flow and make sure you had the call on this cube, the call actually hit the cube, so you can do more debugs. In the chart, we listed the necessary debug for different protocols. For these debugs, one thing you have to make sure is if you use all the debug ending with O, please make sure you understand the impact of the system for this kind of debug. It will generate a lot of amount of the information, which might degrade the performance of the Cisco Cube. Here comes some general cube debug procedure. So if you can recreate the issue, it will be a very good starting point for troubleshooting. So it's better to use logging buffer to capture the complete debug. After enabling the logging buffer configuration, you can clear the buffer to get a fresh debug capture. Then perform the test call, run the relevant show command, then collect the debugs. You can copy the buffer to a file or redirect it to the TFTP or FTP server. So if the problem only happens under load condition, sometimes it's not easy to capture the debug if you've got 100 calls across the queue or something. Then we recommend you only use the error debug or use the PCD function which is per call debug function to trigger the debug only for specific calls. It will be covered in the later slides. And beyond this debug information, sometimes you need to do a Wireshark trace to isolate the issue between the cube or other signaling point. Inside the Cisco Cube also provide the program called protocol ladder diagram to capture the picture from the interface. There are 3 steps of configuration. You capture profile with access control list, and capture traffic with exec level commands, and then you can export the PCAP file to the server. Then you can use the Wireshark or Israel tool to check the signaling message or media messages. For this PCD per call debugging we mentioned before, it's very useful for troubleshooting with high traffic. So you can define the buffer number and the buffer size, then turn on the PCD, then you set the trigger point with the option like course code or specific SIP error message, like 404 or 488 something. So if the trigger point is hit, the debug information will be in the buffer, so you can export the debug to the other server via TFTP or FTP. And also there's an option that you can view the content via the console. This is the end of this presentation for configuring Cisco Cube as PSTN SIP chunk. Besides the information in this slide, you will find more details in the Cube session in cisco.com or support community, and also design guide portal. And also you can find this design document for call managers, CVP, or SIP provider integration in the URL. Thank you for joining this session.
Okay, before we start the Q&A, I'd like to display the results from our last poll. And I'd like to go ahead and read the last polling question. As a result of this presentation, A, we are able to understand the technical details of Cisco UBE and broaden the knowledge in the industry. B, we understand the function of Cisco UBE and might consider using it in a future plan. C, we are more confident about the Cisco UBE implementation and we will accelerate the deployment. D, we understand how to integrate Cisco UBE with third-party SBC in our implementation. And E, we think Cisco UBE is great and we might need more detailed information. So go ahead and take a little bit of time to answer that, and we'll display that in just a little bit. I want to go ahead and thank Randy for a great presentation. And I want to thank everyone for participating in the event polling. And we're going to see the results of the last poll just about now. We'll give that a little bit more time as well, and we'll display that. So now is the time to answer some of the questions that our viewers have submitted. And if you can't stay with us for the Q&A, please be sure to click on the evaluation link provided in the chat to let us know how this session met your business needs and expectations. We are also the first 5 listeners to complete the evaluation survey will receive a $20 gift card. So we're going to start the Q&A. And our first question for Randy is, what would be the minimum CUCM version to support Cube? I have 7.1.5.
Oh, okay. There's compatibility metrics available for this kind of integration. So from the call manager point of view, the SIP chunk integration with Cube become more richer from the CUCME version 5 and 6, and the CUCME 4 version will be very limited supported. And in the CUCME 8.5 and onward, the SIP stack was developed more and more mature. So I recommend you use the latest CUCME version to integrate the Cisco Cube.
Okay, and we had a person ask about downloading the presentation on the Cisco website, and that link is also going to be in your chat window. So it's available not only on the Cisco website, but in your chat window. We have a question: if a SIP-based fax server is implemented, is it best practice to configure a SIP trunk from the Cube to the fax server directly, or continue to send the calls through CUCM?
Yeah, we support both kind of integration. So actually, it's based on the previous design of your network. If you already have a SIP-based fax server connected with Call Manager, and we can leave it there, so you use Call Manager SIP chunk to the Cube, so it will not change your dial plan. That will be, better managed and will be recommended.
Okay. And let's say I have delayed offer from my CUCM without the SDP. Can
Yes.
I use Cube to send out multiple codecs as early offer?
Yeah, no problem. So Cisco Cube can do a delay offer to early offer conversion, and in the Cisco Cube we had a parameter called codec offer O. So also you will configure the early offer false in the Cube. So even we got delay offer without SDP from Call Manager, at the other side we will send the codec within the early offer with the SDP.
And will you be able to confirm whether DTMF payload type is included in the SDP message? Example, if MTP required checkbox is selected in CUCM SIP trunk setting.
Yes, if you select the MTP resource from the Call Manager SIP chunk configuration, and if the Call Manager correctly located the MTP resource, and in the MTP configuration, there's already DTMF involved. So in that invite message, we will have the SDP message for the DTMF payload type.
And to follow up on Matthew T's question, can you elaborate on when Cube SP edition versus standard edition is required?
Cisco Cube SP edition actually running on the ASR 1000 platform, so it will be recommended in different deployment than this slide. So this slide, this presentation is cover enterprise level. For the SP level, actually it will acting as a the boundary for a very large enterprise facing the SIP provider. From the session-wise, how many sessions they were supported for the enterprise level and service provider level, right? So the service provider level ASR box will support up to like 68,000 sessions in the high-end box, and the enterprise will be supporting less sessions. So if you really need so many sessions or the high CPS, so the CPS-wise, the highest end of a service provider Cube can support up to 350 CPS, but for the enterprise level we can do 150 CPS. So it depends on how the scale of your enterprise network, and then you deploy different platform for the Cube.
And can we use delayed offer to early offer working on the cube?
Yes, of course. Like I answered the previous question before, right? So we can do early offer first. So the cube will do the delay offer to early offer conversion.
And the CLI configuration of cube can be a nightmare,
Mm-hmm.
and some think. And the graphical configuration of cube exists.
Actually, there's a CCA GUI configuration available for cube. I remember maybe start from CCA 2.3 version, so you can have a graphic configuration for the cube.
Okay, and we have another question, and I can answer this for them, whether PowerPoint presentation would be available later or only as a WebEx session. The PowerPoint presentation would be available separately as well as within the WebEx session on the community site. So what needs to be configured in the Call Manager SIP trunk version 8 to remove the DO to EO from the cube and have the Call Manager produce EO sessions?
Okay, so from the Call Manager 8.5 and onwards, in the Call Manager SIP chunk profile, there's options, so you can enable the early offer. Even you don't need the MTP resource. So for the Call Manager 8.5, you need to check the MTP box and make sure there's a media resource the Call Manager can allocate for the outgoing SIP invite. So you can do early offer from Call Manager to Cube.
And what are your thoughts about using H323 between UCM and Cube, then use SIP between Cube and the SIP provider?
Like in the slides, we mentioned about the best practice using Cisco Cube, right? So for the later Call Manager version, then Call Manager 6 and onwards, we recommend use SIP protocol between Call Manager and Cisco Cube. If from the service provider point of view, if they can provide SIP service, which will be better. But sometimes maybe the SIP provider can only support H323 service. Then we can do the integration from SIP to H323 in the cube as well.
And is it possible to integrate with CIC server?
CIC server, can you elaborate it more? CIC?
Yeah, it just says CIC server. Do we want to go back to that at a later time?
Yeah. Please give me more information about the CIC, because there is a lot of acronyms, so there's no available one in my head for the CIC. Okay.
So maybe somebody can clarify that question. And also, Randy's going to be having Ask the Expert event after this, so that you can also submit those questions on our website. Here's some clarification on it. CIC server might be from Interactive Intelligence.
Interactive. So it's a call center, or what kind of service this server provide? So I need more collaboration. I mean, more elaboration of this in more detail.
Okay, maybe the person who posted that can go ahead and post that on the discussion site, and we can get clarification on that. Here's another question. What interoperability testing has Cisco validated?
So in this slide, right, we provide the URL for the interoperability testing with the major SIP provider and also the other IP PBX. So you can find it in that URL for more details in this slide.
Okay. And what platforms support the Cisco Unified Border Element?
Cisco Cube is a integrated application within Cisco iOS software, so it can run on most of the ISR or ISR G2 platform like Cisco 2800, 3800 or 29, 3900. Also, it can run on the Cisco AS series like 5350XM or AS 5400XM, the so-called Universal Gateway, and also it will support the service provider version on the ASR 1000 series.
And what is the licensing requirements of the Cube?
If you have some existing Cisco gateway, you just download the Cisco iOS, which can support Cube function, and also you have to buy the license for the sessions. So how many sessions you want this Cisco Cube pass through. So for the different platform, we have such kind of like 100 sessions or 500 sessions, and up to 16,000 sessions for the ASR platform.
And can Cube forward present subscriptions from PBX to SP?
Can you come up again?
Yeah. Can Cube forward present subscriptions from PBX to SP?
Presence subscription, if it can be, I mean, if it pass on the MyMe application or something, we can pass it on using the function like pass through the unsupported SDP or unsupported header. So we support passing through most of the messages.
And what redundancy mechanisms does the Cisco Unified Border Element offer?
You can actually implement a very wide variety of redundancy design from a different level. So the redundancy will include like inbox software redundancy, and those will be provided by the ASR platform, and also box-to-box redundancy using HSRP. And you can also use load balancing redundancy with Cisco SIP proxy. And yeah, we provide so those kind of redundancy box-to-box or inbox software hardware level.
And do you have a comparison table with ACME SBC?
Those kind of information, I think we can maybe find it in our database later, but I don't have it in hand now.
So they can go up to the community site and get that in the discussion?
Yes.
Okay. And how many digital trunks support Cube?
How many digital chunks?
Yeah, support Cube.
So because the SIP service was based on IP, right? So we can support for the enterprise version. We can support up to 15,000 sessions for the IP connectivity. So I mean the voice call sessions.
Okay.
Well,
and how does the Cisco Unified Border Element perform transcoding?
Like I said in this slide, right? So the Cisco Cube can act as a transcoding resource between the different codec, and also we can do a DTMF interworking between the IFC 2833 or RTPNT to the in-band voice for G711 codec. So there's the capability there.
And does the Cisco Unified Border Element affect voice or video quality?
There will be very minimum impact actually. So as long as you watch out your CPU performance, they should be fine.
And can the Cisco Unified Border Element handle unified communications and data traffic simultaneously?
Yeah, that's of course we can do that. So because the Cube is an iOS-based router, right? So not only we can do the voice traffic handling, and also we can do the routing for data traffic.
And does the Cisco Unified Border Element support interactive voice response, IVR?
Okay, yeah, the Cisco Cube can work with TCL IVR scripts or voice XML application to provide IVR capability to the IP codecs. A basic single-stage call using a TCL script is supported. So you can configure the TCL script under the Dalpier. It will be triggered and give you the prompt. So they will be supported.
And is an MTP needed when using a Cisco Unified Border Element with Cisco Unified Communications Manager?
In general, the Cisco Cube does not require MTP resources. So, but for some specific call type, the Cisco Call Manager might require a MTP. So as the Cisco Cube can provide MTP function, so the Cisco Cube can provide the Cube function and MTP function at the same time. And so based on the different iOS, so in the latest Cube iOS, it's not a mandatory requirement for MTP, but you need to pay attention to some specific call flow depending on the integration with Call Manager and other devices.
Okay, and a couple final questions here. For authentication of the invites from SP, is it only a dial peer configuration or should it be globally enabled first?
The authentication command will be under the global voice service, the CPUA configuration. For this kind of registration, we differentiated the registrate and the authentication part with different commands. So the credential command is for registration. The authentication command is for the challenge when you make a call outbound to the SIP provider.
And let's have one final one. Does Cube have to be run on a dedicated device router?
It depends on how many sessions you will run through this Cube. It's not necessary that you run it as standalone devices. Like we have the ability to integrate MTP, the TDM gateway function in the same box, right? But if you are deploying a large enterprise with a lot of calls, then we suggest that you have a standalone router to function as a Cube, and then use other device for the other functions. But if the traffic was not that high, and you can configure more functions on the same device besides the Cube function.
Okay. That's going to conclude the QA portion of today's event. Randy will be hosting an Ask the Expert event starting now, July 26th, until August 5th. If you didn't have your questions answered here, you can go ahead and submit them there, and he can answer during that event. You can do that by logging onto the Cisco support community and clicking on the Ask the Experts tab at the top, and he'll continue answering those questions through the community site over the next 2 weeks. If you have not explored the Cisco support community, you should take a moment to check it out. It's an excellent resource, and it's located at https://supportforums.cisco.com. And we also invite you to attend our next Expert Series webcast with double CCIE Customer Support Engineer Nikendra Kumar from India. And the topic will be Multi-Protocol Label Switching Virtual Private Networks, MPLS VPN. And that's going to be Wednesday, August 17th at 4:30 p.m. local New Delhi time, which is 1 p.m. in Brussels and 7 a.m. in New York. So you can register for that live webcast at www.ciscolive.com/ATE. And on your screen, we are now displaying the results of the last poll. We also want to let you know that the iPad app for the Cisco support community is available now, and you can download that from the iTunes Store. We also have an app available for your iPhone. For more information on that, you can visit the supportforums.cisco.com. And before signing off, please take a few minutes to complete your evaluation of today's session, and this will help us address your business needs and interests in the future. And I would like to thank our expert Randy and Robin, Abu, and Jackie for sharing their expertise with us today. And I want to thank all the participants, and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Francine and Randy. Just a reminder that there's a survey at the end of the event. Just like to thank everyone for joining us, and have a great day.